All right, welcome everybody to our July town hall. It's very hot where I am, so I was just saying that I'm sweating right now and it's just a hot day, but it seems to be that way across all of North America. Um, Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm the executive director of the Beagle Alliance. We're very, very excited to have the CEO of Frost Fund, among many other titles that she has, Brittnei Schaeffler, who has a presentation for us. So I'm not going to get into too many details about who she is because she's got a presentation and she's going to get into that. So welcome, Brittnei. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I think a few other people might be jumping in. I just got a text, so just pay attention in case they do, but I don't
Absolutely.
know. So,
Okay, I'm on it. So welcome and thank you. It is 5:30 where you are, so it's a little bit earlier. I know there's some people here where it's already 8:30, but so we're going to get started and I'll let people in as we go along. Brittnei, you have a presentation, and then as usual, most of you guys know we do a question and answer and just kind of chit chat, very casual. So I'm gonna get you to share your screen, Brittnei, and we'll just
sure.
kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that right now. And just so you guys know, this presentation is short and sweet before I open it up, and I wanted to just highlight a few things about Frost Fund and then kind of lead it into what Lori and I thought would be a really unique touch to this conversation is just the hard work it takes to be in the rescue game. And I'd love to hear from you guys what, your interest in being here today is, what roles you play, how you see it, and kind of what's important for Lori and I, which is the faith component. So we're taking a little fun approach to this
We are.
presentation, and I'm really excited about it. So let me just move this out of the way so I can make sure this is all right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. I can't see myself. So if anything happens, Lori, just holler.
Brittnei, I think if you we're just gonna it's all gonna be about learning today, and I just
Yeah.
learned this on Teams. So I think
Oh,
there's a way in which you can view it possibly. If you click view, you might be able to see yourself and your screen. If
let
you
me
change
see
your view
here.
at the very top, if you
Oh,
change your view. Yeah,
let me see here at the beginning. Okay, let me try this one more time.
give
And
it
we're
a
gonna go
shot.
share. Let's go. Oh, here we go. Okay, I side by side. Okay. Oh, a reporter. That's fun too. There's so many options here.
We
Okay,
are
let's try
being
this
recorded.
one.
Just so everyone knows, we're being
There
recorded
we
because we
go.
put everything up on our site after. So there you go.
Okay, we'll just go with this. Can everyone see the
Cool.
screen?
Yeah, and you. It's awesome.
Awesome. Oh, cool. Okay, this is fun. All right. I
Okay.
still don't see me, but if you could see me, this is exciting. So,
Okay.
hi everyone. As Lori shared, my name is Brittnei Schaeffler, and I am the CEO of Frost Fund. That is one of the many things that I do. And Frost Fund is only a year old, so it's still pretty much in its infancy stage. But we have done a lot in this exciting year that we have been in existence. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of how we got to where we are. And again, if you guys have questions at any point, or if you want to just throw in some comments, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Like I said, I can't see all of you, so please don't hesitate to speak up. So yeah, just a couple of slides here for this town hall. Again, thank you, Lori, for having me. This is really exciting. I do think that conversation and education and community is very important to not only nonprofit work, but just community work and growth as a whole, as we all have a role to play in this. And so I'm excited to be able to talk with you guys and meet you guys once I finish sharing a little bit about Frost Fund. So I think it's important you probably know a little bit about me because as the creator and the founder of nonprofit, it's a lot of it is pulled from my heart and who I am and my experiences. And so just a couple bullet points. I do have my master's degree in the conservation and management of protected areas. I went to graduate school in Edinburgh, so Scotland, Edinburgh University. And then I have my bachelor's in environmental science and policy from Chapman University, which is a school down here. I'm in Orange County, California. So that's where I'm at. I am also a personal trainer, Academy of Sports Medicine certified, and fitness nutritionist. I'm a college professor, CEO. I'm also a wife, a cat mom, and athlete sponsored for Spartan races and High Rocks races. I love ice cream. Yes, I do. Chocolate chip ice cream all day. And I'm also obviously a believer in Jesus Christ, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, and just the role that my faith has played in this Frost Fund creation and really in all that I do. So just a couple of fun photos. The top right is me at a wolf sanctuary for my 13th birthday. I went to a wolf sanctuary. Not many girls on their 13th birthday were wanting to go to wolf sanctuaries, but that was me, and that's not changed. And then the top left photo is me speaking at a honor society event at one of the schools that I teach at. The bottom left photo is from a magazine for the clothing line / the tactical company 511. So their slogan is always be ready. And that's naturally something that I have always kind of honored in my own life as well. And so I love working with like-minded groups, whether it's nonprofits or businesses. And then the bottom right is when I was fortunate enough to go to South Africa to do research with the Cheetah Outreach Organization and get to interact with some of the public that came into this amazing facility. And this was one of the adorable girls there, and she and I were just having a good time, and she was super cute. And so I got to teach a little bit about conservation education and livestock, or sustainable and friendly methods to deter livestock predation from predators rather than killing cheetahs or servals or other animals. We talked and taught about how we can live in coexisting ways with them and do that efficiently. So that was really cool. Now bringing it into Frost Fund. And again, this is a really, really, like, we're jumping years here. So in graduate school, I'd like to just share really quickly, I studied methods to enhance the public's involvement in conservation with science communication specifically. So I was really passionate about all these papers I would read. There would be these scientists that would be like, we understand this and we discovered this and we found this, but always at the end of these peer published reviewed articles, they would always say, but if we cannot get the public to care, what are we doing, for lack of better words? They would just say, but our real problem is we need someone to investigate. How do we get the public? How do we get leaders? How do we get people that aren't interested in this to want to be a part of these things? Because we could come up with all the scientific findings in the world, but they will only have so much impact if it's not getting out there. And even as someone who in graduate school loved reading about this and would sit and do 60 source annotated bibliographies, even I in moments was like, this is grueling, like, oh my gosh. And if I was someone that was passionate about it, like, how would I expect anyone that wasn't to want to read and learn? So my mission has kind of been really started from that and kind of just grown from there. So Frost Fund was established after 8 years of experience from graduate school, working with nonprofits, whether that was with wolves, with cheetahs, with local rescue groups, doing a lot of content creation for them, marketing, public speaking for them. And Frost Fund eventually came about in January of last year when I was working on a rescue with a dog named Frost. And so if you want to learn the 5-minute Frost story, go to my website, our website. It's on the home screen, and it'll tell you about Frost and how Frost Fund got started. But I will tell you, it was a really tough time in my life, and it was a really tough experience that I went through. And sometimes those are the things in our lives that shape us and help to produce good. And that's ultimately what happened. But I will say there were many months of not good that came before it. And so Frost Fund is named after Frost. And unfortunately, long story short, I had to hold Frost while they euthanized him. And that's a story for another time. If you'd like to ask questions later, that's fine. But you could also check it out on our website, like I shared. But from there, our hope is just to provide, or our mission is to provide hope and resources to animals and the people protecting them. And so it was really important for me that it wasn't just a rescue focused on animals. I also wanted to focus on people, because just like I learned in graduate school, I was very clear from day one that we can do all that we can for animals, but if people are not becoming a part of the solution, if people are not getting educated, if people aren't feeling valuable and filled with hope in these really tough situations, then we're only battling half the problem. And that's my opinion. And that's just the stance that Frost Fund takes. And so very quickly, we have 3 ways we approach this: through education, through rescue advocacy, and through supporting like-minded nonprofits, just kind of like what we're doing right now, education / supporting the Beagle Alliance and them supporting us. And that's, Lori and I have that in common, and I love it. So real briefly, we've created over 50 educational blog posts, documentaries, collaborations. This is all together, not 50 documentaries, reels and podcasts. We have saved the lives of 25 animals now, 17 dogs, 9 cats, from grassroots, just Red List rescue missions. And we'll talk about those in the next slide. We're growing in that. We've got some cool connections coming up with different rescues in California, in Arizona, and in Colorado. And so we're really developing that. And then through support, like I said. So one of the other things we do in addition to like right now, earlier this year, we raised funds and we hand built enrichment items for animals at the California Wildlife Center. These are animals that are being rehabilitated or that were injured and are being basically doctored up to be released back into the wild. And so this picture in the bottom right is the hospital manager at the Wildlife Center. It's one of my interns on my right in the black sweatshirt named Stone, and then my husband behind me, who has been a huge help on his days off in all of this. So that you can see the little hawk hut we built above our heads there for injured raptors and hawks at the California Wildlife Center. We built a lot of things, but that was just one of them. And so bringing it to the Red List rescue, first of all, does anyone have questions or comments? If I'm going too fast, slow me down. I just want to make sure this is about you guys as well. So I don't want to talk about myself forever.
I'm looking and everyone's good. I'm watching to see if anyone raises their hand, either literally or on the screen. And awesome. So Brittnei, just to cut in for your own comfort zone. So your view, you're not seeing anybody?
I am not.
Okay, because
but I will when I stop screen sharing.
So yeah, so you're okay.
It's all good.
Okay.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just watch for everybody in case anyone wants to cut in.
Perfect. Thanks, Lori.
Okay. Yeah.
So just a couple more slides here. So the Red List Rescue is something that started prior to Frost Fund being created. There was a dog named Bramble. I was on the board of a nonprofit called Friends of Long Beach Animals. And this was about 2 years ago-ish. And there was a unique story leading up to that as well. It's just funny how God works and connections are built. But anyway, when I was on this nonprofit and this board, we would get emails every week of the Red List. And this was a list of 20, 30, 40 dogs sometimes that were up for euthanasia within days or a week, maybe 2 weeks if they're lucky, sometimes 5 hours at the time when we were seeing it. And I had always known that, shelters weren't the, most hospitable places for animals, but I had never really understood the extent to what that meant right now, and especially in California. And so after getting these Red Lists repeatedly every week, I got to a place where I literally had to take a step back and be like, why is more not being done? And there was a lot of talking about what should be done, but not a lot of action. And you got to have both. I get it. It's always good to have wisdom before you jump in an ocean. But at the same time, I was like, we don't have time to wait. These animals deserve more. And so I just kind of started on Instagram, my Instagram platform. I would post about one animal and I'd be really specific about that animal. Whereas I have found some other organizations, and again, this is just how Frost Fund works. Some other organizations I'd follow where people would post, 5, 10, 15 animals in a day, help. And I have found that exhausts people, that overwhelms them. There is no clear call to action, and it just becomes almost like saturated. And so for me, I was very intentional about, we're just going to focus on one animal at a time. And my opinion is one animal life saved is worth all the effort. And so for me, that truly was what the Red List Rescue was about. So basically, we've created a community online. We make these animals go viral. We get celebrities, influencers to share them. We get people to tag the post. And from there, if an adopter or foster is interested, they'll reach out to me. I'll coordinate with them to meet at the shelter. If any of you have been at a shelter, sometimes it can be really overwhelming. And in particular in California, there's often a lack of organization. And so it's really easy to walk into a shelter not knowing much and to be like, well, I'm getting out of here. Like, this is crazy. And I have seen it happen multiple times, which is why I always am at the shelter when these Red List Rescue adopters or fosters are coming forward. Mm-hmm. You could kind of think of it as a liaison, but I'm kind of that point of contact to help them understand, to be that extra help for the shelter. And Frost Fund is there to provide them also training and guidance. We have a partner trainer Canine Drew, who's amazing. He offers discounted training packages, whether virtual or in person, for anyone who adopts or fosters red listed dogs that Frost Fund advocates for. So we're growing. We've got little bits and pieces, but here's the top right is a picture of some of the dogs that we've rescued. Not all of them. These are dogs just days or hours before euthanasia. A few of them have gone on to be veteran service dogs. We've taken them to partnering rescues and they've been trained, and now they're going to go and save the lives of people, which is really, really cool. And we've also just recently this year, and like I said, I can't see you guys, but there is an amazing resource that an individual that we have in Colorado, and he has helped us to connect with basically rescuing cats now from California shelters and bringing them to Colorado to a shelter there. And so you can see some of the cute cats. And if you want to talk about a stressed mom, we did our first transport of 7 cats a couple weeks back from Riverside to Boulder. And I was just a hot mess, like picking up these cats because I care so much, not because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. It was just like, oh my God, like they're in my hands now. Like, oh, this is happening. And so anyway, there's some pictures of them. You can see they were precious and I fell in love, and it's a good thing I don't have a big house because I would have kept all of them. But so you can kind of see us interacting in one of those photos at the shelter, picking them up. And then the bottom middle photo is our wonderful driver. Her name is April. So right now, one of our goals is to acquire a Frost Fund transport vehicle. We have the big fundraiser in the fall coming up, and you guys could learn more about that, because ultimately, my belief always stands that one animal is worth the fight, and we're going to do these red list rescues as long as we can. But we also see the need and the opportunity for larger impact at once. And we've got Arizona Humane on board and a couple others we've been talking to agree with us to essentially bring animals out of California and get them to these shelters where animals are being adopted like crazy. So for example, these cats that we were able to rescue were adopted within 1, I think, to 3 weeks, really max. Whereas in California, they could have sat in that shelter for months and or been euthanized. Yeah. And so it's literally all hands on deck, and it's just doing what you can. And I'm learning the hard way a lot of times in this process, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I like sharing photos because those are fun to see. So that's some of the stuff we've been up to. I wanted to pause, share this 90-second Red List rescue video of one of our recent rescues named Haley. She has a really cool story. And then I've got like 2 more slides and then I'll wrap it up. So if you guys would like to enjoy, here is this. So that was just one of our rescue videos. You guys can watch more of them. We have, oh gosh, 19 of them up now on our website, awesome. And they're all just really feel good, happy stories. So that is the one thing about Red List rescues. When they are started, I never know how they're going to end. And if you could have told me that I'd be on the phone with Chris the day before we were supposed to ship this sweet Haley to New Jersey, and he was like, I'm coming to get her, I'm flying in from Northern California, I would have just been like, what? So God works in really cool ways in these rescues, and that's probably one of my favorite parts to see. So just to kind of close out, on that. And again, this is a very brushstroke overview of us. There's a lot more I'd love to share and go into if and when you guys ever want to know more. But to kind of bring it into this bigger picture of faith and hard work, which is something I think the public needs to see more of, especially when someone like Lori or myself, or perhaps even yourselves, I don't know you guys, so I'm not sure, your experience being in this rescue world, or even if it's advocacy, or even if it's just volunteering. It is hard. It is hard. It is draining. It is a lot more, I think, than people understand, because when you see pretty, rescue videos like I just showed, it's easy to be like, oh, okay, good job, like, yeah, keep going. But then it's like, you don't often know the weeks leading up to that of hours of calling, of coordinating, of communicating, of emails, of praying, of getting details about an animal, vetting people, driving. I don't live close to the shelter that I work with, and that's okay. There's a reason for that as far as why I work with them. And I could, if you want to bookmark that and ask, I'd love to explain it. But it's just a lot. And so for me, I really want the public to know we get so much verbal support, and that is huge, and that is needed, and it does wonders. But we also need help with people being the hands and feet, whether that's financial donations so that we can do rescues, not in an emergency, we need help, please, all the time. Or just being involved and doing what you're called to do within this niche. And so the three things I kind of wanted to point out that I was thinking about today, and there's a lot, I could write a book, I really could, but the three things that I kind of wanted to focus on today were, for me, the outcomes are never guaranteed, like I shared. And for me, faith is what gets me through this constant fear. Anytime I'm about to do a red list rescue, there is a day or two before where I almost go into this like mental and spiritual cocoon. And I talk with God, and I understand the situation, that it may or may not turn out in favor for this animal. And at the end of the day, what's hard for me is I do assume a large responsibility. As soon as I see that dog's photo and I know it's the one we're going to advocate for, it's like hook, line, sinker in me. And so I know I'm either winning with this dog or I'm losing with this dog or animal. And that is the hardest part. But over the past year, I've come to this peace, and it's definitely in flux still, that at the end of the day, I'm doing more than most people would possibly for this animal. And we are doing more by giving this animal a chance than it might have if we didn't. And so if that outcome is not in the favor of the animal, meaning euthanasia, it's something I'm going to have to live with, and Frostson will have to live with. But at the end of the day, it really is a faith thing for me, and being centered and being present and being okay with that outcome is the only way that kind of helps me get through these things. And so my verse in correlation to that is from 2 Corinthians, and it says, we walk by faith, not by sight. Because you are going into these rescues blind. You are going into a lot of the work in advocacy blind. You don't know what's going to happen or come from it. And that's exciting, but it's also terrifying. And so if you let that fear stop you, then there would be no progress or lives saved. And so this is just a really important one for me. The second one would be that being a CEO, I am learning and have learned, means being willing to both lead and allow others to experience joy in playing their own guided roles. One of my favorite parts that I did not expect of starting a 501c3 is the joy that I see it bringing to other people, whether that is the adopters and the fosters that connected and get to save these animals' lives through the Red List, whether it's getting to help these shelters who are just inundated and overwhelmed and are like, thank you, like, for being an extra source and not giving up on us when other rescues have because they're just too taxed. Also the volunteers that get to get involved with us, our drivers, our donors that do step in. It's an opportunity for them to give, to literally be the guts and the heart of what we could not do alone without them. And for me, I am blessed to be able to lead a team of two wonderful interns. As a professor, my heart is so on students and youth and education. And so we have two young interns in college that I've also been able to bring on board. Well, they're 2 of 4 that we've had now, and guide them and teach them. And we do these things together, and they're given projects and they have roles every week. And so it's been really cool to be able to allow them to use their strengths and their interests for Frost Fun. And then just seeing other people be happy. That's what you have to focus on in this, and it's not every day. So you really have to take the wins when you get them. But one of the verses I believe that correlates to this is in First Corinthians, and it says, God has placed each part in the body just as he wanted it to be. If all the parts were the same, how could there be a body? And so for me, I, as a CEO, understand that I don't know everything. My intern doesn't know everything. My volunteer doesn't. My donor doesn't. The shelter doesn't. And I think when we can use what everybody does know and the resources everyone does have to do something collaborative and great, of course, within guidance, at the end of the day, I am running a business and I am leading this team. So I have to have that awareness and that initiative. But I also like to provide that recognition of what are your strengths? How do you want to get involved? What do we need, and recognize that everyone's a different part of this body. And whether you're the head, the ear, the arm, the leg, one can't function without the other. And so for me, that's been a really cool learning experience, and it's helped me to take some of the weight off myself. So, and then the last thing is, amidst the sadness, demands, and the cries for help, which are constant, you have to keep a light heart, boundaries, and perspective to stay involved. There have been months, and Lori could probably agree, and maybe a lot of you guys, where it's overwhelming. There are days and there are some days where you're just like, I can't do this today. I cannot. I have to take a step back. And that's hard when you built a platform, and that's hard when you are running a nonprofit and there's constant animals, right? There's a million that need help right now. And so having that human component of, I also have a life outside of this. I also have mental health I need to take care of. I also have a family depending on me. I also have finances. I have another full-time job that I have to do, outside of this. And so just being able, I think I have learned it's very hard, especially from an outsider's perspective, to see and understand. But I have learned you really have to stay in the game. At least for me, I have to keep a very light heart about this. I have to keep very clear boundaries with myself. I can't let my thoughts unravel. I have to have my phone on do not disturb most of the day. Otherwise, I'll get a zillion texts and I'll never get anything done. And I have to look at it when I give myself the attention and the time that is deserved for that. And then just the perspective, like the above verses we talked about, we're all different parts of the body. Frost Fund is not the global solution. There is no one global solution. It's everyone doing the best they can, how they can, and focusing on the wins, not staring at the scariness, not staring at the sadness, although those are very real. But I'm learning it's just about putting on that armor. And literally for me, it's like going to war for these animals. And so you cannot go into war thinking about all the bad things that could happen. You have to focus on what you're there for. And if the bad things happen, it's a product of the situation, but it's not a reflection always of you. And so, yeah, those are just some of the verses. And these pictures, the bottom left is Mako. He was like our 14th Red List rescue, I think. He was an amazing Belgian Mal. You could see he's undernourished. He's doing much better since this day. I was able to go pick him up and bring him to his his adopter. The middle photo is a group of, like I said, I'm a personal trainer, and we do the Sweat to Protect program. And so people can come together and sweat to protect wildlife and animals with us to raise funds for Frost Fund. So this was a Sweat to Protect event we did. And then the bottom right is two of my interns, Stone and Audrey, at one of our events at a rescue ranch in Chino Hills. So yeah, those are some of the lessons and kind of the that internal vision that I try to maintain as a CEO of a nonprofit. Last slide here, just so you guys know what we're doing moving ahead. Like I said, we want to acquire a transport vehicle. We're going to continue these Red List rescues. We're really trying to start a virtual Sweat to Protect initiative, all on social media. So we're going to be raising funds through memberships, monthly memberships, where you can work out with me live from your own home. All you need is a pair of dumbbells. And we partner with Soldiers for Wildlife, which is an anti-poaching organization in South Africa. And they do a lot of emergency response for animals that are caught in snares or just unfortunately affected by poaching. And so we're going to be raising funds for Frost Fund and Soldiers for Wildlife. And then I love our internship program. I want to continue that if we get the funding to do so. And then we do have a very exciting fall festival in October. And if you are interested in coming to that, just let me know. I'd love to extend the invite your way. It is in Chino Hills, California, so I'm not sure where you guys are at, but I'd love, regardless, for you guys to follow us on Instagram. That's it below. That's the best way to stay up to date with us. You could also subscribe to our website, which is listed below. We do send out email updates, and one of our interns is our content writer, and he kind of keeps everyone up to date and posts some fun stuff. So yeah. And then my last thought was for you guys, you matter. Thank you for being here. Whether we have 5, 3, 2, 50, 100 people, everybody matters, and you are here for a reason. And that's just not meaning in this presentation, it means in life in general. And so I would love to just hear from you guys, questions, advice, wisdom, and then also Beagle Alliance. I don't know that this presentation is all about me. So Lori, if there's a component, you know, you want to add and you want to share, you know, whatever those next steps are here. But I truly appreciate everyone being here, and those of you that are new to Frost Fund or hearing about us, I hope you enjoyed. And for those of you that already support us, thank you for continuing to do so.
Thank you. Thanks. That was amazing. And actually, it actually is all about you, Brittnei. Today.
Okay, cool. I'll take it.
It is all about you and Frost Fund today, but I know we're going to touch on some similarities, that how you and I connected and how that worked. And so does anyone have any questions? Because I end up talking and then I start getting into questions myself. So just wave. Hi, April. Thanks for coming. I did go in the chat also, and I put the Frost Fund website in there for anybody that wants to go in the chat. And again, I'm not going to lie, this is only our third, I think, town hall with Teams, so I'm not as proficient in Teams as Zoom. So I'm kind of going back and forth figuring it out. But that was amazing, Brittnei. There's so much that you're doing. I don't even know where to begin, really. Can you talk a little bit about the red list animals? Like, I know the literal state of California in the rescue world is pretty not great. And I have so many connections to California and have worked within the state of California virtually, but mostly with people in shelters in California. And of course, during COVID, we could see the writing on the wall, you know, that I think is a problem in Canada as well, and other states where there was already a lot and kind of overpopulation in shelters. And then COVID hit and everybody took an animal home and then seemingly returned the animal, many. And we do have that problem here, but it really is not really the same situation as California. And definitely in Canada, we don't have that kind of high kill shelter situation. And I understand what you're saying about, because as a rescue for us, because people know we work across North America and we do rescues in the States right now specifically and bring the dogs to Canada, we do get a lot of people from California. And it's true what you say, you become overwhelmed because they're direct messaging 25 dogs that are on this list, and it's hard to handle, right? It's hard to handle and to look at. And so I think the focusing on one animal and really letting people get to know that animal is pretty special. But tell us a little bit about the state of California in terms of the red list.
Yeah, everything you said is 100% right. And gosh, I don't know what it's like to live in a state where there's a lack of animals for adoption. That's an incredible thing. We've been working with Boulder Humane, and the shelter directors will literally email me and be like, look, we don't have enough cats for adopters. Can you get us some cats? Like, we are out of cats. And it's like, what does that look like? You're out of cats? Like, it's crazy. And then as far as dogs go, yeah, I think people first think about the dogs before the cats, and it's equal a problem on both sides. Obviously, a little bit different living situations for cats and dogs in shelters, but nonetheless, not super warm and welcoming and comforting. And the problem, in addition to the numbers being so overwhelming in California, that's one thing. But then when you've got these animals living in these shelters, like our last rescue, Harley, if you go to our website, you can see him. beautiful black German Shepherd, 270 days in the
Ooh.
shelter. And it's just, can you imagine living in a kennel this big for 270 days? Like, it would make anyone lose their minds. And so the hard part, in addition to the overwhelming numbers, is that these animals are suffering from these stress-induced behaviors when they're in these shelters. And then you've got the shelter volunteers and workers who are equally as overwhelmed, and then they are feeling distraught, and they cope and process that differently, and sometimes that reflects very, very poorly with their interactions and people coming to the shelter, when really they need to be putting their best foot forward for these animals. And ultimately, the hard part is that these animals are not able to be shown in the best light, and it's no fault of theirs. It's a product of right now the situation and the system in California and potentially elsewhere. Um, and so really what's important to me and Frost Fund, and again, this is just our role. I'm not saying this is the right way. It's our way, is really to focus on one animal at a time, because I can't even tell you, we'll advocate for Harley, Haley, Mako, Bill, whoever it is. And the amount of questions that, and here's the other hard thing, and this is an insight into for you guys into CEO life. I strategically word these red list rescues. I am so clear in where the dog is, who they are, how old they are. I get everything straight from the shelter so that I'm relaying the most accurate information possible. But you could do that and still get 50 DMs. Where is this dog? How old are they? And then you got to respond, and you got to
Yes.
be nice, and you got to be like, please read the caption. Everything is there. And sometimes people don't even, they're not even interested in adopting or fostering. They're just like feeding, whatever it is. And so it's a, from my perspective, the red list situation in California is something that is, and some like the rescue itself won't advertise, or I'm sorry, not the rescue, the shelter. Maybe that's something we should talk about, the difference between a shelter and a rescue, because that took me a while to understand. But the shelters will not advertise boldface, these are our red listed animals.
Right.
Like if you go to the shelter, they're not going to tell you these 10 dogs are going to be euthanized tomorrow. And here's two sides. I'm all for wisdom in this. The first thing, my gut reaction is, that is a disgrace. That is terrible. These dogs should be front and center. But then the other side of that also is, you do not want people adopting dogs only to return them a day later just because they feel bad for them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's a reality. I've seen it happen. And so these shelters are fighting this double-edged sword of like, do we do more about it, or how do we do more about it? And so Frost Fund takes that unique approach of, we acknowledge the red list status of these animals. And if we have a set deadline of, hey, 2 weeks, 2 days, whatever it is, then we will publicize that. We do not do it in a way of like, oh my God, anyone come get this dog. It's like, no, you need to be the right person.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what this dog is dealing with. Here is why. It's no fault of theirs. Here's their background. So if you are willing to be that person, let's talk, let's have a phone call, let's meet the animal. And then for me, as I mentioned earlier, the benefit of working with the shelter I work with, some people will, I can't tell you how many DMs or messages I'll get, and they'll be like, help this dog, help this dog, help this dog. And they're from shelters in X, Y, and Z, California or elsewhere. And as much as I would love to, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, have to have these boundaries. And we have established a growingly positive relationship with the Long Beach shelter, which is who we work with. And so I'm very easily able to text or message the shelter director and be like, hey, look, we are starting a red list rescue for this dog. Please, if in any way possible, give them an extension on their euthanasia. Or, hey, I'm coming in today at 3:00 with so-and-so. Let's make sure we all put our best foot forward. They're trying to adopt and or foster this animal. Or like Harley, for example, he was a very unique situation. He was returned by a rescue that we had worked with. Well, wasn't ideal. But anyway, had I not had that connection with the rescue to be able to email them and say, hey, look, in a normal situation, you'd euthanize this dog today. Can you please give me 10 days to advocate for this dog and figure something out? And they're willing. And so one thing I would tell volunteers and or anyone interested in this is build a relationship with a shelter that you feel like you are capable of working with. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but what it will make things easier. There will be days where you're disgusted with them. Trust me, I've had them. But there will be more days where you're like, I'm glad I have not just tapped out emotionally with this rescue when I wanted to, because we have now saved 17 dogs because of staying in the game with them. Yeah. And so it comes down to that kind of, as I talked about earlier, that understanding that trying to have that lightheartedness, trying to keep that perspective, walking away when you need to, so you don't give up ultimately. And to bring it back, just Lori, to close out on this question, yeah, California, the number one kill state, Texas is up there, North Carolina is up there. Mm-hmm. And so these states just, and a lot of it is a breeding situation, but also like California, for example, there's a lot of apartments or living situations where they will not allow larger breeds. And so these Huskies, these German Shepherds, these Mals, these, whatever they are being put in these shelters and not getting adopted because sometimes there's just no capacity for them in these housing situations, which is a whole nother political issue, right? Yes. Of affordability of homes and the trickle down effect that's having on people and animals alike now. And so there's a lot, I think what I'm learning is there's a lot of things that need to be tackled and problems addressed, and that can be overwhelming. So it is about recognizing your strengths and your resources and doing what you can where you can. But yes, the red list in California, that's why we're trying to get dogs out. That's why we need, and cats. I keep failing to mention that. That is why we're trying to get this transport vehicle. This is another CEO insight here. We could have, like, if I posted, we need, I don't know, let's just give a number, $1,000 in donations between now and Saturday, so we can save these 4 dogs or whatever it is. We would get support for that. Maybe not the full amount, but we would have money generated because it's like this urgent, like, help, help, help. But when I post, guys, we could save over 100 animals in the next few months if we can get a transport vehicle, crickets. And it's like, it's like, make it make sense. Like, and this is not me like degrading, harping on anyone. It's just things I'm learning that, like, oh gosh, like, how do we, and this is the challenge I have, how do you get a similar response of need when it is not a, hey, an animal is going to die tomorrow situation? And this is what I've had discussions with shelter managers about, and they face the same concern. And so this is a reflection of just people, and it's part of the game, like I've said, and I don't mean a game. It's a part of this process, is working with people and understanding people. And also I have to check myself, because when I get crickets, when I post something like that, I'm very passionate, right? And I see A plus B equals C. We just need B. We've got A. I can't get B. I don't have that money in my pocket. Like, we got to come together. But then when that doesn't happen, I can lose myself. I can get frustrated. I can get, I'll be honest, upset with people who otherwise would support and like our posts. But it's like, now is like the time to really, like, come together. And that's not to say that everyone can do that, and I get that, but it is emotionally taxing. But the way I translate that, when I make this really well thought out post and video and like try to do the best I can and I get crickets, I just say, okay, that didn't work. Let's find out what will. And so that's how I overcome this, like, crickets. I keep calling it that. I just like, all right, it's a learning game for me. I'm only a year into this, and honestly, I will never be an expert. You just learn and acquire knowledge. And so for me, it's just, okay, that didn't work. We experimented, and that kind of helps me cope with things too. I'm like, we're going to try this. I hope it works. If it doesn't, I might look like, the loser in the situation, but at the end of the day, I'm the one in the arena fighting. And so you can talk all you want, but, like, come join me and tell me how you feel type thing. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, that's so true. And so many things we're going through. I should probably sit here and take notes when I'm chatting with people so I can jet back. But well, let me just, I'm going to try to remember some of the things I thought, but because we'll tie it into the faith, which we said we were going to talk about. And I think the fact that for us, like we rescue, for those of you who don't know, we rescue animals from laboratory testing. We're the only rescue in Canada dedicated to animals and research. However, the tricky thing about that is that Canada has no federal legislation protecting those animals, and therefore the facilities are not bound by law to release them to us. So when you say that you hear crickets from social media, I definitely hear that too. But where we really hear nothing at all is when we approach the laboratories and they just don't respond, or else they, flat out lie and say we don't test on animals. Meanwhile, I'll be staring at their website that says that they have an animal care committee. And I'm like, you're lying to me. I'm on your site right now. And so thankfully we work with other organizations in the States and can get more animals out of laboratories from the United States. And we're helping to spread awareness in Canada that way. But and again, just as you say, Brittnei, this is what you're doing as Frost Fund, and you don't know everything, and I certainly don't know everything. I was kind of thrown into this a little bit, where the same with the shelter, like the animal care workers and the people in the facilities are worn out. They're overly taxed. They're like, we come from the animal testing world. The very first people that are going to be vilified are the scientists and the animal care workers. And we decided a year and a half ago, and we've only been in this for 2 years, but we decided a year and a half ago that we were not going to vilify those people, and that we knew that we needed to work together with them, whether I agree with what you're doing or not. At some point, the scientists went into their world to make a difference for humanity. Whether they chose to do it in a way that I agree with or not is, I am not your judge and jury. God is your judge. You stand before God at the end, not me. So that's not up to me. And also, I just want to work with you because ideally you care about humanity. We're caring. There is love there somewhere that needs to be found. And so I think that's the same in the shelter world, where of course you just want to, on days that you're overwhelmed, you just are like, what part of this don't you understand? Like, you're in the animal research world, 90% of potential drugs fail, and yet you all are still testing on animals, and nobody's grandmother's getting cured tomorrow due to animal testing. But hey, I'm just me trying to save some beagles. And so, I think that's where we walk by faith, not by sight comes in, because, every day I have to, over the overwhelming odds that the laws in Canada won't change to where I think they should in my lifetime, I have to believe that I just keep moving forward, brush the dust off, move to the next town as Jesus did, and not let the naysayers get me and hold me back, and just keep on moving. And at some point that breakthrough will be there, whether it's one beagle from a lab in Canada, or it's the 10 we're going to get who are all coming back to Canada, and will go into homes where those 10 people might not have known that animal testing happened in Canada. Even though those dogs are not from Canada, they don't know. And they're going to be walking down the street and meeting their friends and neighbors and talking about that dog they're fostering. And that's where I have to say, okay, Lori, you are not in control of all of this. That's where God comes in, and I don't know what's happening. I can only plant the seeds, and then it's all, you kind of have that peace, right? So I don't know. I'm trying to take leaps. I don't know if my leaps are making sense. You guys tell me, but I'm trying to branch off of what you're saying, Brittnei, with some of that.
I think you're making complete sense, and we're both speaking the same language. I feel like in our backgrounds and what we're doing right now, and it is faith that is so important. I would not do this if I didn't have it. I probably wouldn't care enough to if I didn't, and then also couldn't cope with people. It's never the animals that are. I mean, they're overwhelming in the sense of you love them and want to help them, but it's the people that God really works in me, at least in these missions, to learn and work with. Speak of the devil, here comes my cat Jasper. Speak of the devil, I didn't mean it, babe. Just kidding. Um, but anyway, I think it would be worthwhile for anyone on this call. Like, I want to. I see a few familiar faces, but if it's okay with Lori, like, would love to hear who you guys are and like what brought you here and your thoughts on any slash all of this, or if you have any questions. So if you would like to talk, please unmute yourself. Now is the time.
Everybody chime in. I feel I'm always talking.
No, I'm grateful to Brittnei for actually getting me more involved in this. Although I've been somewhat involved in animal rescue, mainly cats, but Brittnei and I connected through Kindness Ranch, which is a place, as you know, in what's the town? This little tiny town.
Hartville.
Hartville, Wyoming, right? And John Raymer and obviously lot of beagles, right, go through there. And although I've been involved in bringing cats back to Boulder, and I think we've brought 30 cats back in there. And the nice thing is that for some reason, I don't know whether this is unique to Boulder or to Colorado. Colorado is nearly a zero-kill state, or maybe a zero-kill state. And Boulder especially, one of the things I learned is that there are shelters where I volunteer at Boulder Humane, and at Christmas, around Christmas time, there's maybe 1 or 2 cats in the whole place, right? And then you have a crowded facility in California. So a lot of this is actually transferring animals from one place to another. And we were able to get 9 cats through, very quickly adopted. And it would have been even faster, but this is actually sort of peak kitten season, right? But had this been earlier in the year, they would have been adopted in 48 hours, right? So, and I don't know whether and interestingly enough, you mentioned Texas. There's Jasper. If you look at, if you go through the Boulder Humane cat area, at least half or more of the cats come from Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which shows you, right? They're not very.
I believe it.
A few may come from like Pueblo, Colorado, or something. Now, of course, quite a few have come from Riverside, right? About 9, but clearly it's a situation. Not that you can solve the entire problem that way, but it's getting, at least with the cats and certainly with dogs too. And I've done a few dog rescues. That it's getting the animals from a place where they can be adopted, and that takes logistics, some money, right? Some driving. But I think, but I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic, largely because, one, I think you look at what's happened. None of us would have likely met without the internet, right? I mean, we wouldn't know they existed. I mean, if you go back 30, 40 years, how did people connect back then? So now there's much more awareness. And I also think I actually work on a college campus here in Boulder. Young people now are much more conscious of this. They're much more sensitive to the plight of animals, right? I mean, half of them have therapy dogs or special, companion dogs. I think that the new generation is, and if you really look at broadly, statistically, the euthanasia rates have really, really gone down over the years, right? I mean, it really was a horror story 10 or 20 years ago. But I think we still have a long ways to go, right? And I think clearly, so, California, Texas, New Mexico, those places really need to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing, John. Thanks for joining. Sorry, Brittnei. Thank you so much for joining and
nice to be here. I appreciate what you do. And I actually know about your organization again through the internet, right? So
okay, well, thank you. And John Raymer is a friend of mine.
But I didn't know you were in Canada. Actually, I thought you were somewhere. Got it.
Yeah, we're in central Canada, but we do work. I mean, we do work across North America, and and again, our goal is to get animals out and make a difference in our own country, but our goal is to help animals. So obviously it doesn't matter. And that's why our last rescue was called Dogs Know No Borders. The dogs don't care where they come from. They just need to get to a great home. And that's where we come in. So yeah,
I'm
thank
trying to
you.
get my cat into the picture, but I can't. He's not very photogenic. Here he is.
Timo.
There he is.
Is it Timo?
No, this
Oh,
is
he's a
Penguin.
beauty.
This is little Penguin.
Oh my gosh, he looks perfect right there. That's a
He's a
perfect.
wonderful boy. He's 16. We have
Face.
4 cats, and 3 of them are 16 and one's 11. Here you
Wow,
go.
well,
He's
that's
a little
amazing.
shy. He's
Well,
camera
now I
shy.
feel like I should be getting my beagles to hop on right now since we're all just in each other's living room and just doing the thing, right?
No, but Brittney's it is very tasking and very stressful. But I always say to myself, okay, if I just decide, okay, it's too stressful, it's too anxiety producing, I'm not going to let these animals down, right? I mean, that would feel worse. So ultimately, you're sort of torn between your commitment to it, whether it's through faith or whether it's simply because you have a connection with animals. And so the key is absolutely not giving up on this, because I think this is winnable, through one way or another, right? And I'm very hopeful. So and then it's an empower experience. I mean, I sort of had the easy part, driving with the animals. You pick them up, they're cats, they're in carriers, you throw a blanket over them, and they don't even peep. And they're pretty easy, but still, it takes logistics and timing and some money, right? Obviously, but I think it's incredibly rewarding. So I'm totally on board.
It is. I think, and Brittney, I mean, I think everybody here would agree. There's just days that you have to say out loud to yourself, I can't save everybody. I can't. And that's, it's humbling. It's sad. It's obvious, but there's moments when you just think, if you just did more, and if this, if that, and there you go to bed and you're like, I could have worked more hours today. I could have done this. And
Yeah.
I know, as I'm saying this out loud, I know Brenda's nodding her head, because Brenda's my rescue travel partner, and she's like, take a break. Can you breathe for a minute? And I'm like, no. And so, and this is the hardest, because if you're not so much in the rescue world, it's hard to tell people, because I'll have a particular foster who I adore. She's wonderful. And, she's like my backup foster if somebody bails, but she'll call me with all sorts of dogs and say, can we just go get this dog? And there's legalities, and I don't know necessarily. I think it is similar a little bit for the 501c3 nonprofit, but in Canada, we're registered by the Canada Revenue Agency, which is essentially the tax man. And if you are a Canadian, you could basically, you're in more trouble messing with the tax man than if you did anything else to any other human on the planet in Canada. Okay, you don't want to mess with the government in Canada.
That's kind of the same here. Yeah.
So, so basically people are like, oh, you work for yourself. That's so awesome. I'm like, no, I actually work for the donors and the Canada Revenue Agency. And
Yep.
so anyway, though, like when we declare, when you become a charity in Canada, unlike the United States, which is a one-step process, you become a nonprofit. But in Canada, you have to become a nonprofit, and then you have to become a charity. And
That's the same here.
is it? Oh,
That's the
okay.
same.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I was unaware of that. So,
Mhm.
so you're bound by the activities to which you have written out to the right. And so I have to say, look, like, I can't, just because that person doesn't want to
Right.
train that dog, I can't take that dog. Like,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but the dog is not being harmed, has not been abandoned yet. And quite frankly, isn't in a laboratory. Like there's some,
Yeah.
I have to be able to explain it. So it's so hard because that's when you feel like the ogre,
Yeah.
telling these people who are wanting to foster and wanting to help. And you're like, I can't do that. We're working on a 10 dog rescue that falls
Right.
into our mission, which is what
Right.
people are donating to,
Yeah.
and not this over here. And I wish I could do all of it. But I mean, I have the land here in Manitoba, but I don't have a setup for 100 dogs, or else I'd be thrown out of town because I'd have 100 Bane Beagles because they all howl and I'd be kicked out. So,
Yeah, you're so right. And it is, and again, I think that's the part that, not to harp on, but I think that's the part I didn't even know getting into this. And the hardest part for me has been being, it sounds really weird to say, but it has been being a CEO, because there are some decisions I have to make that I don't like, and that Brittney outside of Frostman would have been like, yeah, let's go. Like,
yeah.
we're like, yeah, let's do it. And now I have to think about the donors. I have to
Yep.
think about the team. I have to think about the animal. I have to think about the finances of what we can afford, excuse my language, should shit hit the fan and we
Yep.
have to care for an animal. We don't have excess funds. We don't have monthly donors right now. So we literally are operating on a case by case basis.
Yep.
And that's not complaining. We are new, we are growing, and God has a plan, and I'm excited to see what happens. But it is the reality. And so that's the same thing. Like, for example, we just got Harley to our canine trainer who adopted him officially. But as a rescue, when I go to the shelter, I'm a certified rescue there now at Long Beach. But when I go and I pull this dog, it's on me now, 100%. If on the way to Arizona, this person's like, sorry, I don't want it, can't take care of it, whatever it is, it's my dog now. And
Yeah.
I live in a 900 square, this is one of 2 rooms in my house. So like, and I have a cat that will not, that's another story. So it's these things that I think there is such a responsibility to managing a charitable organization and a nonprofit. And when you're dealing with live animals, I mean, God bless April, this amazing human on this call right here. She has been an angel in my life, but she also drove along with John. She met John in Utah, Beaver, drove the cats the rest of the way, but she got to see
Beaver,
a side of me.
Utah.
Yeah, she saw a side of me she's never seen when she picked up these cats from Chino, California at like 10 p.m. and set out for like a 7-hour drive. By that time, I'm already so exhausted from working with the shelters, trying to do the budgeting and the financial end of it, trying to get all the paperwork together, responding to a million texts from whoever, coordinating, getting the cats there, babysitting the cats, then loading them up, getting them. And then I cry. I cry because I get attached to these animals. And also it's just a coping thing. It's like an exhaustion / happiness. And you can ask my husband, like, you would think after a rescue, I would come home and like want to celebrate and go out and like, I just want to sleep. I don't talk to anyone. I get off my phone. I literally go off the radar because I am just like, well, it feels like coming back from war. And maybe that's just me having to learn more, but it's how I've been in my whole life with things I'm passionate and that matter to me. And so I'm just learning also, be okay. Like, give yourself grace is another thing I'm learning. Like, hey, if that's how Brittney is, that's how Brittney is. And it, I got to learn about myself in this and my feelings. And anyway, but April, again, back to her, has been a huge support system. And just like with John, one of the main supporters of Frostman, and she is our driver. And so she's been helping me really try to pull together this transport vehicle and just with other things. And so, like I said in my presentation, it is seeing the joy and the gifts that other people also get to use and bring. That makes me happy. Like seeing April so excited to drive to Beaver, Utah at 10 p.m. I'm going to be honest, not my gift, not my calling. I can't see at night as it is. I'm pretty blind. And then I was driving from Riverside to Chino, which was like a 30-minute drive. And I was, because the cats were like, "Rah!" John, I don't know what your trick is to get them to shut up. But like, I felt, so I was like, these poor babies are going to die of stress. And I haven't even gotten them there. And I was like, so like for April, I'm like, okay, she can do this. Like, she's good. And that's great. And so we all have like a leg to play in it. And that is so important to me. And I love seeing how God brings the right people at the right times. And John, to be honest, John on this call that we just heard from, he found me through an ad I did when I did acting and modeling back in the day. And he connected with me on there long before Kindness Ranch, I think. Or he saw it and then found out about Kindness. So like, it's just funny how God works, and like every situation is not lost. Like there's a purpose and a transferable gift, blessing, whether we see it or not, in every situation. And truly my favorite part, one of outside of saving the animal's life, is the people, like all the adopters, the 17 dogs we've saved, our family now. Like they'll send me updates about their dogs. They'll ask what's going on, and it's so cool. One of them, like their daughter is like 6, and I go and visit her and she like cries when I leave. Like she's just, you know, having, like you said, Lori, that impact and that sharing. And one of my favorite quotes truly is, the world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. And so for me, yes, we're fighting this like never-ending tsunami of like, you know, hardship, but it's also like, okay, if we all just take action and do what we can, that can inspire other people to do it as well. And then guess what? When you've got an army now versus 1 or 2 people, you can do a whole lot more. And so that's just kind of how I see it and how I get through this. And you gotta try to have fun somehow too. It's like one of my other favorite verses, like, if you do not have love, you have nothing at all. You could be a billionaire, you could save all the animals, you could know how to say the right thing at the right time to anyone, but if you don't have love in your heart while you're doing it, you're nothing at all. Like, you're not nothing at all, but like, why are you doing it?
Why are you doing it? I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
My way to like check myself, because there'll be days I'm my dad's daughter, and if you know my dad, you don't, but like, I'm my dad's daughter, and he gave me so much passion and gifting, but he also gave me some anger things. And so anyway, working through those, but I check myself in those moments of that anger, and I'm like, or not even in anger, in sadness, or in like almost like roboticness of going through the motions to do something. And I have to be like, I'm not doing this in love right now. It's not because I don't love it. It's just because I haven't centered myself enough, or maybe I need to take a break from texting and social, or I need to tell that person no, or I need to stop working on Frost Fund and go do other Brittnei things so that I can come back to it in love. Because if I don't love Frost Fund, I will give up on it. And I know that from experience. And so for me, my priority is staying in that love. And that requires saying no, and that requires boundaries. But that's because you love something enough to want to stay with it. And so for me, I always say, that's my question. Like, if I realize this has become more overwhelming, or this is becoming not fun in a relative sense, or I'm not feeling love for this, then I have to step out and come back to it. Otherwise, it won't be successful. And why am I doing it? We sacrifice way too much doing these things as it is. If we're not loving people and animals in the process, then why are we doing it? And so that's my biggest self takeaway, I guess, in all of this as well. So
yeah, no, it's a big one. And I think it's perfect too, because, and I'll relate you discussing April with the Brenda scenario too. But I will say that I agree that I get into the robotics of it, and I will write down the list of quote unquote chores I have to do, which they're not chores, but I call them chores because I live on the farm. So I call everything chores. So, and then, and just literally, I got so caught up in this rescue we're working on now of 10 dogs. And, you know, I have my list, and I don't have my fosters yet. And what's going to happen, the same as you, Brittnei, like Brenda and I were on the road you know, on the other side of Canada, the other side of the country, which is huge. And a foster didn't work out. And we're like, okay, well, I guess we're picking the dog up on the way back and then hopefully finding a place for the dog somehow in that. And so you don't have that break to breathe. But what I had to remind myself recently was that the fosters that are set up, this is new to them and they're super excited about this. Like, this is thrilling to them. They are getting to help a dog in research. It's a beagle. They either love beagles or they want to help. And so I just said, God, please just remind me if I'm ever taking this for granted. Please don't let me ever think that this is just
so
blasé. You know, like don't come home to your yard with 10 beagles and think, oh no, I've got to let the beagles out and the people are going to be in my yard. Who cares? Nobody's looking at how clean my house is or whatever. They're there to save the lives of the beagles, and don't ever forget that, and don't ever lessen their joy or forget their joy because you're getting caught up in things that really at the end of the day mean nothing, because those dogs just made it out. Like, literally just, they were destined, born and bred into testing and destined to die at the end of it. And they're not now. And there's a whole bunch of people who want to make their lives awesome. And everything else really pales in comparison to that on that day. And I have to always remind myself that nothing's ever going to be perfect, but what will be perfect is that each one of those fosters is going home with a dog, and that dog's going to live to see a lot more, you know, many more years, not in a cage. So that's the piece. But I know I'm with you, because there are certain strengths, of course, I don't have, and Brenda can attest to them after we've traveled hours, days. But again, God worked it out magically, because Brenda and I came from corrections, and she happened to retire right around the time the Beagle Alliance started. And so she's like, hey, I'll go on the road with you. And so it just all worked out. And I think at the end of the day, I don't know if we've said this out loud, Brenda, but you know, we worked in corrections for a decade together. I'm pretty sure we can transport 10 dogs. We'll figure it out. I don't know if we've actually said those words out loud, but it's probably so ingrained in our head, like, we made it through jail. I think we'll be okay. So
no, you're so right. And on that note, just how God works everything together. And then I'd love to hear from like Mike or April or Stephanie or Dennis or Brenda, anyone, if you guys want to. But same here. So my husband is in law enforcement, and when the Frost situation happened, which I'd love for you guys to go watch the video on my website after this. But anyway, it was one of the most traumatic things in my life, the way it happened. And I remember for weeks, I was just like, I asked him, I was like, Jake, how do you get the things you hear and the things you see out of your head? Like, how do you? Because I will never, anytime I take a hard turn on the, I think it's a 73 freeway coming home from the beach now, if that means anything to you guys, like I get sick to my stomach, like just because of what was happening at the time with Frost in the back of my car. And anytime go on a roundabout, I just think, anyway, and that's another story. But he literally told me, he said, you know, Britt, like, you don't forget the things, you just either are able to deal with them or you're not. And if you're not, that's okay. Like, it's okay. You just have to know that it doesn't necessarily get easier. You just learn how to manage these things, and you have to also decide, like, do you want to continue in this or do you not? And it is okay if you don't want to. And so the reason I bring that up is there are those moments where people in our lives are there to give us that insight and that support that we need. And they're using their backgrounds as well, which is why I think, like, for example, John is on the Frost Fund board, and our board is pretty diverse. And I did that for a reason. It's not, you know, people who have been working in animal rescue for years. It's people that are accomplished in other areas, or well connected, or that have hearts of gold, or that have a lot of experience and potential to support, like John does. And so for me, I saw too many organizations that I worked with and in grad school of just all like-minded people, and all like the same train, which is good. But also I was like, if everyone's the same, like, you're not able to develop and grow differently. And so I'm thankful that I have my coaching background and knowledge. It's helped me get tasks done. I'm thankful I've been a professor, because I can create project goals and outlines much easier now. I'm thankful that my husband is in law enforcement, because we can talk about really hard things together, and we get each other in a different lane, but like still with these life and death situations sometimes. And so it is really about, no matter what you guys are doing, what you're doing, Mike, what you're doing, April, what you're doing, Brenda, Stephanie, Dennis, like, surround yourself with people that can really support you and that you can grow from and with. And I think that's what makes life colorful and interesting. And for me, that's been a huge reason why Frost Fund has had the success it has had as well. So yeah, I agree with you 100%, Lori, and your guys' backgrounds and corrections. At least from the little bit I've heard over the past years, you can do this definitely. Like, transporting 10 dogs who love you and probably want to lick you, and are,
Totally. Yeah.
like you're good.
And I think the collaboration, I want to build on what
Yeah.
you said before we go, Brittnei, because I know it's late for, especially Mike and Stephanie, it's an hour later than we are even. But I think it's collaboration, to which I've worked in rescue where I've seen one-man shows, and the competition, interestingly enough, in rescue, which I would have never imagined until I got there, but is so great that there is a denial of wanting to work together. And I just thought, there's just no, I don't even want to do it on my own. It's not possible. It's not as fun. Like, it's not as fun. And also, if the goal truly is to help the animals, well, that's not a one-man show. It's not possible. It's got to take a community, and there's no one hero. Everyone, I mean, people thank me all the time, and it's so overwhelming, because it's usually the fosters and adopters who thank me. And I'm like,
you're like, I'm thanking you.
Are you guys joking? Yes, that's where we need everybody. That's the thing. We need the donors. We need the volunteers. But truly, I would not be able to say yes if I didn't have a home for these guys to go to. We don't have a facility. We're a foster-based organization. And so really, the heroes are the ones who take a dog sight unseen from a laboratory, having no clue how old they are, what gender they are, what they've been through, etc., and give them a shot. And so it just goes to show you that it's not, no one person can make a difference in this world. Yes, Brittnei, you have to be the face of Frost Fund, or you are the face, and I'm the face of the Beagle Alliance, but that does not by any stretch mean that I'm out there doing anything on my own, because if I didn't have God and all of these people, there would be no Beagle Alliance and no beagles coming out of laboratories in our world, that's for sure. So it's the old cliche village thing, right?
Laura, I couldn't agree with you more. I think you have to put any kind of differences aside. Not that there are really any differences, but you have to keep in mind that the main thing is that those animals get saved, right? And if someone gets more credit or less credit, or that you have to put all that aside. I mean, on this last one, took Brittnei to work with, was it Riverside, and April did have to drive. I did some of the drive. A friend drove with me, who actually goes with me on quite a few of these. And then people at Boulder Humane, right? So it really took a whole chain of people who had to be absolutely aligned.
Exactly.
And, once in a while. So we did a rescue, and this was back in January. I think it was for a wolf project. Was it Darby?
Yeah.
And we were supposed to deliver a dog from a foster in Denver in January to this ghost town named Dinosaur, Colorado, 300 miles away. And we were ready to do it, and then this snowstorm came down where literally an avalanche covered the road. So we had to put, said, do we want to drive through this and then be trapped with a dog under an avalanche? So we postponed for a week. Everything worked out, but it was touch and go, right? I mean, and those things will happen. And happily, the dog got where he was supposed to go. So
It worked out.
no,
That
it's
takes
not for the.
that lightheartedness. You have to be lighthearted. Okay, there's an avalanche. I'm gonna keep a dog for a night. Like you got to be adaptable. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm lighthearted because otherwise I'll lose my mind overthinking what's going to happen right now. So you gotta just cool.
But I'll tell you, it was so great to see those cats arrive in Boulder Humane, right? Because the people there are very receptive. They're good with them. And you just like, okay, that's it, right? You hand them off. And then the good thing is I actually volunteer there so I can kind of check on them.
Yeah.
No, I think it's been tremendously rewarding. But as Brittnei said, it is highly taxing emotionally.
Yeah,
it is. Well, thank you guys. Did you go ahead, Brittnei?
Oh no, I was just gonna ask if anyone else who's been quiet. I don't want you guys to feel not included. Mike, do you have any thoughts? Who are you, Mike? Where'd you come from? Nice to meet you. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. That's okay. I just wanted to say hi. April. April is a rescue mom too, amongst other things.
Well, I'll say this because she knows I'm a talker because I've known this gal way too long, Miss Brittnei. I would say that the reason because I like to support people and I love animals. Every one of my dog has been a rescue. And when she says that, that Frost Fund's only rescued 19 dogs or what number you had, 16 dogs, she doesn't realize how many other people have rescued dogs because of Frost Fund. I am one myself,
Don't make me cry.
But it's true. Like literally if she put a note out there saying, hey, who rescued a dog because of Frost Fund? I mean, she doesn't know all the other dogs that got rescued because of Frost Fund. She knows my dog because she's kind of like a family member to me. Like I'm a second mom to her. But, I called her and was like, yeah, I got down there to this thing to see how you get red rescue lists. And I went to one of the high kill shelters and I went in. Well, first step was wrong. I went in and my husband's like, what? You went in? And I literally sent him home a picture of 2 dogs that were going to be killed in 3 to 5 days. One was a Mal and one was a German Shepherd. And he's like, we are too old for Malinois. And I'm like, okay. And I literally came home with a German Shepherd that day. And that was all because of Frost Fund. No other reason. We did not need a dog. We already had a dog, so which was a rescue. We always rescue dogs. That's our go-to dogs. That's how we get them. So I think that even though you don't see some of the outcomes, even with the Beagle rescue, even you might not see what you guys have done and being transparent, which that's my second thing I'll say, but you don't realize how many other dogs have been saved or cats because of you guys and because you started the Beagle Alliance, because you started Frost Fund. And so even though maybe 15, no, honey, there's more. And Dallas, and thank God we saved that dog because the sweetest dog ever. I would never in my life adopt or rescue a German Shepherd. I would have picked them out, but my husband said no. So I literally came home with the German Shepherd that day. And he's still with us.
And he's the most beautiful German Shepherd.
So that's one thing I think that sometimes, I give you both kudos, pats on the backs, everyone, the team, the community, because you don't know how many more are being rescued because of what you even do. So that's always been in my mind, because I think that, your numbers probably doubled, because of everybody you touch or other people. And the other thing that made me want to be involved or drive. I mean, I love to drive, but I wouldn't just drive for anybody, or I wouldn't just jump in and get involved. But what truly, truly, truly that I can stand behind Brittnei is her faith in Jesus, her transparency about Jesus. When I went on Frost Fun, I didn't have to guess she was a child of God. I knew that. Like that, and that to me, you're putting your faith out there with your business or your 501c, that is something to hold on to. That is something that not many people will do. That's in the back corner, oh, you talked to them 2 weeks later and you found out they were a Christian. You don't have to guess with her. The blogs, everything that's, every day she is encouragement, and that all goes back to her walk with Jesus. And so, and just being on here with you, Lori, I'm like, here we go. Here's another one that is outward with their belief, with what you believe and why you keep stepping in faith because of God. You step out there and it's going to happen, and you, good or bad, not, what is it? I used to say when we'd pray, you get a yes, and some people say you get a no, but I say you get a not yet. Because nope, it's just he in the clouds there, he's still not yet. So I guess that's why I'm here tonight, is just to totally support Brittnei. I even got off my financial planning Zoom call. I'm like,
oh no,
I gotta go. It's 5:30. That's why I made you early.
April, you're so
but
sweet.
Thank you,
whatever.
April.
I can't
That's
take the money with
amazing.
me.
That is so sweet. And I want to say, I think that's so awesome. And also I will say that, and Brittnei, of course, knows this, because when we planned our first call and we were chatting, I said, look, I just love what you're doing with Frost Fun, but I'm not going to lie. I called you because you're so out there talking about Jesus that I just had to call you on that. So I'm like, just so you know, I'm calling you. Yes, we love the animals, but this is why I'm actually taking the leap to message you. And I just really want to talk. I just wanted to talk with you. So that's really cool that you said that. And I'm just going to momentarily out Mike, since he's been really quiet today. So Mike is my cousin in Ontario who actually came on vacation here during my fundraiser, and then worked for literally 24/7 for 4 days. Had to go home for a vacation, really. So I'm not going to let him stay. I'm not letting him stay quiet, because I couldn't have done it without him or Brenda, actually. So anyway, he doesn't get, I'm going to speak for him on that note.
Is he Ontario, Canada, or Ontario?
Yes, Ontario,
US?
Canada. Yes, not California, okay. Ontario. Yeah. And I do have family. My family is in California, so I'm glad you asked that question, but it's actually Ontario, Canada. Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I would say, on the red list stuff, I think that there's a very skewed thought about kill shelters and non-kill shelters, because just sitting here when she was talking about the red list, I just looked up, is California a non-kill state, or what shelters are non-kill? And it makes me laugh, because 9 out of 10 of your shelters are going to say, oh, we are a non-kill. However, that's a load of bull, because they get overcrowded. Now all of a sudden there's a medical or there's a behavioral, and we need to euthanize. Well, you just said you're a non-kill. Mm-hmm. So yeah, are you a non-kill, or you euthanize because there's medical and because there's behavioral? But at the end of the day, it's because they have no more space. And even though it's against the law, it is literally against the law for them to kill for overcrowding. They do it.
Oh, sure they do. Yeah.
And so when people go, oh, well, that's a no-kill shelter, I'm like, I'm sorry, that's Riverside. No, that's one of the highest kill shelters. Mm-hmm. Yet, if you look up and ask, literally Google it, they come up as a non-kill. Oh no, they are a kill shelter.
But I get this impression, sorry, Dick, I think California can solve this, because California can do anything. They actually build like a bridge over some freeway so the mountain lions can go over. Did you read about that?
It's
If
only
you,
been like
was involved
300
in that.
years that they should have done that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know, but that's so cool. But that's got to take some serious money, right?
That always, I hate to say it, it comes down to money. And
Yes,
Yep.
it does. And so when someone wants to put some serious money into the shelter crisis, we will see some serious results.
exactly. And when people want to put some serious money in Canada into animal research and actually,
Yeah.
caring about both the animals and humanity equally, because it's not
Yeah.
serving either, then we'll see some change. So yeah, it
Yeah. And
really does come down to it.
it does. In America, we have the Animal Welfare Act, which was made,
Mhm.
I think, like in the 70s established. It's been hardly updated since, and it creates these minimal expectations for humane treatments of animals in laboratory settings or in veterinary care, whatever it is. And so, just like April was saying about how they'll say, oh, we're no kill, a lot of places will say, oh, we abide by the Animal Welfare Act. And it's like, have you read that
Mm.
act? Because I have.
Yeah.
And it is pathetic that America is claiming that as our, foundational piece of uh, rights for animals at this point in captivity or enclosures, whatever you want to call it, whatever makes you feel better about it.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, we could talk about that forever, but
Absolutely.
I think the most important thing that I've learned is we all, and this will be my last thought. When I was on this nonprofit, that was hi baby, that was the kind of the drawing line for me that made me get off the board. I was like, we are sitting every week and talking about how much we hate things, but like, what are we doing? And that was when I had to be like, okay, I've learned what I need to learn. I need to go do Frost Fund because we got to change something. And the more that I learn from people like Lori and other incredible organizations, John Raymer is like my mentor in this world as far as animal welfare goes. The more I just see, like, it really does take a team, and it does take everyone doing their parts, and it takes coming together like this. Like, I would love to find ways. Lori's so sweet. Like, I'm so happy all of you are here, but there's been different turnouts at different town halls she's told me about. And so I would love to find out a way to just get more people to come hear these conversations and not just hear me and Lori talk, but like answer questions. Like, I wish I could have come to this 5 years ago and been like, I don't understand, like, what's the difference between a shelter and a rescue? Or like, what is going on with the animal, because that would have helped me get started on this a lot sooner. And I was educated. My education is in conservation, so it's with wild animals, which is why we're still engaged with South Africa. That's my passion, if I'm being honest, is wildlife, animal welfare. But while I live here in California, when I found out about what was happening with animals here domestically, I was like, like, whoa, okay, if I'm not in Africa living, I better be doing something here a little more hands-on. And so it just takes being aware. And like Lori said, she's focusing on Canada, but then they do Dogs with No Borders. Like, that's awesome. So just doing what you can where you are and watching God water those seeds and bring cool people into your life and being nice to people. I've seen a lot of people be mean and burn bridges in this rescue world, and I'm not saying stay in a situation that is unhealthy or where people are mistreating you, because I'll be the first to exit. But at the same time, emotions are always high, and so it's kind of like this having this forward thinking and this awareness of grace. But it's just a unique world, and so I think more people need to understand it. I think more people should be excited and passionate and start some nonprofits if they want to, because if everyone, started doing things that they felt needed to be done and building things, then we wouldn't have to wait for others to do it. And then, I don't know. I just think there's a lot that's something I love about my interns is like, I want to eventually start a course where it's how do you start a nonprofit? Okay, you want to start a 501c3? Let me help you, because it is not easy here. Oh my gosh, that in itself was a process.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
anyway,
Exactly. I agree.
we should
And
probably
gratitude.
wrap up.
We
Yes,
probably
yes.
should. And I'll end it with gratitude, because everybody has their part. And as long as you stay grateful for each person's part, then you sort of never get caught up in your own overwhelm. It's like you have your part, stick with that, and everyone else kind of has their part, and you can at least be grateful for that. And on that note, I'm grateful to you, Brittnei, for taking the time and putting together your presentation, and to you guys for being here. It's always a good time. And as Brittnei said, it doesn't matter if there's 1, 2, 10, 50, like, we just come together, seeds are planted, and people go off, and we've all gotten an opportunity to meet new people and chat a bit, and you know, who knows, maybe we'll see each other in person at some point. You never know.
I like that.
I hope
Yeah.
so. I hope so. Well,
It was
you're
great
all
meeting all of
invited.
you.
Come in October to Chino
Come in
Hills.
Oct- that's
You're all
exactly.
invited.
Yeah.
Big fundraiser event. I'd love to see you all. So let me
Well,
know.
thank you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Take
I
care.
would love to be there.
Bye now.
So nice meeting you, and Brittnei, we'll talk soon.
Thank you,
Talk soon.
Lori.
Bye
Thank
now.
you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Love you
Bye.
guys. Thank you.
Later.